Life after React. Today's topic on the Fish Fry Friday. No fishies swimming around, but it is Friday. It's TGIF. How's it going, everyone out there in the webosphere? I'm RTC. Welcome to my channel. We are talking about this little thing that has sort of weaseled its way into all of our lives, whether we like it or not, whether we're full stack, back end, front end. We've heard of this thing. React, a JavaScript library for building user interfaces. Who'da thunk? We'd have literally millions of blog posts, thousands of courses, videos upon videos on YouTube. The list goes on. But this isn't a question of is, but when? When will it fall out of favor for something else? Because the one inevitable truth about this career field is that technologies change. Are you prepared? If you don't have an hour or however long we're here today to sit through this live stream, that is the question I want you to take away with you today. We're going to do a roll call. I have a few announcements, and then we're going to get into the protein of this video. First of all, you may have seen me blow this up on my community section on YouTube. Portfolio Surgery is my 5th book, and I'm hoping for it to be my 5th #1 Amazon release. We have some pre-orders. Super excited to see. Thank you so much for the support. This book is dropping November 16th on Amazon, and it is designed to totally transform your portfolio. So if you're a self-taught developer and you've been taking courses and building projects based on those courses, you may want to check out this book, because I'm going to show you 5 methods for totally transforming your project so that employers can say, this is an interesting project. I've never seen this one before. Or, I like how this developer is solving this problem. Let's call them in for an interview. That is why I wrote this book. I've done lots of portfolio reviews over the past probably 2 years, both on this channel and in private one-on-one consultations, etc. So that is based, the knowledge I gained from those experiences was what helped me write this book. Portfolio Surgery. It's also a course on RealToughCandy.io. Paradoodly-doo is our moderator extraordinaire today. Para, please pop those links. Again, thank you for the pre-orders. I checked in today. I was like, oh, okay, people are listening. People are interested in this thing. So Portfolio Surgery for junior web developers. Make it pop. Revamp boring software projects and build an unforgettable portfolio that employers love. That was my best Halloween scream. Actually, it wasn't. That was a very modest Halloween scream. Happy early Halloween, by the way. Cheers. Shout out to Chiquito for providing today's beverages. We're going to do a roll call, see who all's here. Then we're going to pop into the topic. Let's go inside the chat. What's up, Corey? Juan Lopez, Triple Y, Dollars, Next Door Panda. Donovan, what's up? Says, sup, Candy, wrapping up a deployment at work right now, almost done. All right, that's good to know on a Friday, because that's happened to me too. It's like, okay, I need to wrap this up, otherwise I'm going to be here all weekend, blah, blah, blah. Average Joe has seen what's going on. Randy Miller, hi. 2 back-to-back channel supporters here. Thank you so much. We also have Haruchi up on top. Paradoodly-doo holding down the chat. Trailer Man, what's up? Says, hi, RTC is love, RTC is life. These comments are very encouraging. Ayan, what's going on? All right, so the title of this video is called My Life After React. It's kind of an extreme title, wouldn't you say? Like, oh, it's almost like, there was a death in the family or something, like, my life completely changed forever after React. I taught myself React, as many self-taught developers do. Why? Because that was the popular thing. We have an amazing JavaScript community. Wonderful React developers out there who have graciously shared almost all of their knowledge, if not all of their knowledge, and then some. We have great community relationships with some of these companies. It's just a really robust ecosystem. How's that for like back-to-back buzzwords? But this thing has really taken the web development universe by storm. And it's really interesting because before React, we had something take the web development universe by storm. And before that thing, we had something else take the web development universe by storm. Anybody remember this? It's a JavaScript framework. Simplify dynamic JavaScript UIs with the MVVM pattern. Now, I'm gonna share a little bit about this framework. I'm not gonna do anything too crazy, but let's just check out the key concepts here, which they've graciously declared. Declarative bindings easily associate DOM elements with model data using a concise, readable syntax. Check. Automatic UI refresh. When your data model's state changes, your UI updates automatically. Check. Dependency tracking implicitly set up chains of relationships between model data to transform and combine it. Check. And templating quickly generates sophisticated nested UIs as a function of your model data. Check. Knockout came out in 2009-2010. At that time, it was really cool. Anybody remember this thing? jQuery? Kinda, sorta. That was a big thing too. That was like a really big deal. That was like a BFD. That was like a big frickin' deal. jQuery is another example of a technology that really got people hyped up. I still love jQuery. I don't care what anyone says. So yeah, RGC, that's great. That was in the past. Who cares? Well, React is another thing in that chain of popular technologies. And the point of this video isn't to say, beware developers, the world is going to end. That was my best, Count Chocula impersonation. It's eventually, maybe next year, maybe 2 years, I don't know, 3 years, I don't know when, but it will happen. People will be typing, is React dead? I have an article on my website on RealToughCandy.com. It's one of my highest performing articles. I don't know if I want to show it to you guys. It's simply called, oops, that's probably not going to happen. Is jQuery dead? It's one of my most popular articles on this website. It's been published for over 2 years. I've made modest corrections to it, updates. In a short amount of time, again, I don't know if it's 1 year or 2 years or 6 months from now, people will be Googling, is React dead in 2021, 2022, whatever. And so why does this concern you? Well, as new developers, we tend to get really attached to the implementations and the technologies rather than to the problem-solving process. And so what I want newer developers to think about is less on the implementation, getting all these React, fine-tuning these things, and using React as a tool to solve a problem. Because at the end of the day, we get paid to solve problems. As I wrote in my upcoming book, Portfolio Surgery, as I talk about in the course, Portfolio Surgery, RealToughCandy.io, we get paid to solve problems. If engineers and the powers that be said, we found out we can improve efficiency by 42% using banana peels, then you, my friend, would be using banana peels to solve problems. This is a means to an end. And whether you know a little bit of React or a lot of React, eventually we'll have another means to an end. And one of the most difficult things for me when I got into the operational software industry, not as a student, not as someone doing volunteer projects, where there's a lot more forgiveness, where there's not a lot of you can't get fired for being a person who starts your own project unless you decide to fire yourself, which I'm sure those people are out there, but you gotta love yourself. In the real working industry, we have deadlines, and it's like this. The boss doesn't care whether you know it a lot or a little, it has to get done. And the thing that really tripped me up was holding on to these implementations because, listen, this book, Pro Mern Stack, I use Cold Steel's course. I used a bunch of different blog posts, etc. I used this book, Pro Burn Stack. I did not use any of these technologies when I entered the operational software industry. I was working with proprietary tech. I was working with PHP. I was working with legacy frameworks like Knockout. I was working with Angular.js. I was working with Angular 2. I was working with a newer project in Vue. Didn't get much into it, but that was one project I did touch a little teeny bit. I had held on to the MERN stack so hard that it was very, very difficult for me to transition, because even though a lot of these concepts, most of these frameworks are just trying to do the same basic things. Knockout, Angular, Vue, React, React 2, Svelte, there are improvements, there are variations, yes, but the core of it, they're UI things to make things more efficient, to make things more performant. That's our job. The MERN stack really set me up for my first month being really tough at work. And if I had to do things differently, I would focus more on my logic and reasoning skills rather than, okay, I'm going to go build another React project. And in fact, this book, I don't recommend this book. This book is a few years old now. And even when it came out, it had quite a bit of errors in it. This is from 2017. I don't recommend this book. But this has a really cool project in it. And it's an issue tracker, like on GitHub. I don't know if you guys can see this. Can you see that? If you can't, you'll just have to believe me. It's an issue tracker, and it's a really cool project. I was focusing more on building the projects and really focusing on like the syntax rather than understanding why I was doing what I was doing. And I think that's a sentiment that many new developers can relate to, unfortunately. And when you get to your first job, now all jobs are different. But if you taught yourself React and that's all you immerse yourself in, and you end up going to a job where they're not using that, or they're transitioning out of React because one day soon it's going to be another jQuery, you better hope you have a really nice senior developer to help you through like I did, or a good mentor, or a great support system to kind of steer you in the right direction. And so it was a real wake-up call that first month. I had been freelancing prior to that, but there's a big difference because, number one, I wasn't sharing my code with anyone. And as long as it worked, the client really didn't care the clients don't care what the code looks like. People on your team do. Other developers that you're working with do. And so when I was working by myself, it was just like, okay, yeah, whatever. Spaghetti code, no one's going to see this. You can do that in enterprise or for-profit work outside of freelancing, and even nonprofit work outside of freelancing, but there's a lot more scrutiny. And you don't want to be that person where you're already the FNG, the freaking new guy, the freaking new gal, whatever. You're already that new person. You don't need that extra scrutiny of like, oh, who wrote this? Like, you want to be a great shining example of a new hire and why they hired you. They want to feel good about why they hired you. I don't think those first few weeks, my people, my senior or the person who hired me, the boss, felt really good about hiring me. But I went home and I studied more. I reached out to my network. I started coding in my off time. Like, I was doing a lot of stuff offline on my own because I didn't get a lot of the stuff. Now, if you end up going to a job that uses React, great. But as you can see here, so I typed in jQuery, North Carolina. I just randomly threw in a state. 202 jobs. Now remember, just a few short years ago, jQuery was like React in the sense that everyone was talking about it. It was really fun. You could have instantaneous results. And it was implemented everywhere. Now it's considered, at a lot of companies, it's considered more of an inconvenience or something. It's legacy. for a lot of these companies, unfortunately. And now we're seeing a lot of code bases, the decision makers saying, okay, let's update this, let's modernize, let's update to something like Vue, React, or Angular, whatever version we're on right now. Some projects don't need frameworks, believe it or not. I recently put out a poll in my community tab. It has already like 300 or 400 responses. Should new developers learn React? Some really interesting responses in the comments if you want to check those out. But one of the things that is really tempting also is not learning JavaScript sufficiently because React is what everyone's talking about, and that's where the fun stuff is. My throat's a little dry. That's where the super fun stuff is. So why bother, working with your 80th JavaScript array when you can pop in, look at this, look at this sexy syntax, look at these colors. It looks so modern. It looks so fresh and edgy. And I can even put in some markdown here and it'll work. What? Hello. What? Hey, it worked. Wow, that's pretty cool, right? And to get that immediate result is really tempting, and to shift over to that focus. The reason you would want to learn something like JavaScript before getting into something like React is because, number one, assuming you're a new developer, that language, JavaScript, is going to be your foundation for programming basics. So again, JavaScript, languages are a means to an end as well. We talked earlier, just 10 minutes, 15 minutes ago, about React being a means to an end. You're using React to solve problems. That's the same thing with languages. Whether it's Go, Ruby, PHP, Python, COBOL, Pascal, C++, C#, C-, F-, whatever. Any of those are used as a means to an end. JavaScript is a means to an end. And so you're using JavaScript to solve a problem. And if you understand JavaScript, you can better understand this. And that was another problem I had too, because I fell into the trap of, JavaScript arrays, JavaScript object, JSON, whatever. I can whatever. I didn't spend enough time with JavaScript, so my understanding of React was shaky, which, if I had a stronger foundation, I would not only be a better programmer at work, but I'd also be a better problem solver. And so even though I didn't use React in enterprise, and I hardly use it nowadays, I use it for little small things and experiments and stuff, but as far as like for-profit work, I just don't use it. I'm like LampStack day in, day out. By the way, I'm going to transition to something super related to PHP, but super related to this topic also. I was shaky, and I wish I would have spent more time honing those skills. So when I looked at these types of snippets, I wouldn't have to be like, okay, class, translate. Okay, extends, translate. And then like, okay, I'm using this. This refers to the thing it refers to, right? So like this, fat arrow functions, they intimidate me not using them. That's another thing too about ES6. I learned ES6 only later on, like just a few months before I was hired, because I was taking that Colt Steel course, and I'm not blaming Colt Steel, but the resources that I did have on me were all ES5. So I was working with stuff like var, function, keyword, all kinds of non-ES6, in other words. I didn't have the knowledge or the tools to even, well, I guess I should just say I didn't have the knowledge of ES6. So that was another thing that was going against me. But more to the point of this video, my life after React is just fine. I learned it. I used it personally for a few small personal projects. I don't think I'll be using it in the future, but if I have to, great. If it solves a problem, all right. But the problems I deal with on a weekly basis, usually 100% of the time, don't involve React. And that's okay. We have other options. We have other things going on. We have legacy frameworks. We have jQuery and so much other stuff. And as I mentioned earlier, lots of projects don't even need a front-end framework. Like, when I see something, now I'm going to get like a lot of hate for this comment, but Gatsby to me, yeah. Static sites are cool. Static site generators are really cool, but number one, we have way too many of them. And like, that's a whole different thing. I'm not even gonna get into static site generators and Gatsby because I do see how it can be useful sometimes. But I think a lot of people also fall into the trap of like Gatsby when they're also working their way up to find their first job. And the truth is, find me an enterprise, find me a for-profit place that's using Gatsby, where people are getting actually paid, besides like a digital agency that creates Gatsby templates or something, or like whatever layouts. It's more of a hobby for a lot of people. And so the problem is we start learning these things and they're just not applicable to the job market. Let's go to the comments. Ifiro sound, lots of people joining in. What's up? Hey, do me a favor. If you're watching this vid, hit the like button. Tell YouTube that this video matters. Robbo the Fossil, what's up? Just woke up from a nap. Robbo, that sounds real nice. Want to trade spaces? You can come on the channel and talk about React and life after React. And I'll go take a nap. Isn't that a Paula Cole song? Mr. Melick. Ooh, Mr. Melick has a really good comment about WebAssembly. Yeah, he says, or this person says rather, I think WebAssembly will rise and Python, C#, and Rust will become a big thing in web devs. Absolutely. This is something we talk about that I get excited about, and I seem to just kind of blabber on about it occasionally on this channel and my Discord, is Rust and WebAssembly. Because Rust, for those of you who don't know, is blazing fast. We have other languages that are blazing fast compared to JavaScript and these other languages that we use on the web. WebAssembly is going to be the great equalizer. IMHO. So excited for it. It's my top. If you look at my bio on RealToughCandy.io, my bio says most excited about WebAssembly. I think it's going to be great, and it's going to offer more opportunities. There are going to be a lot of headaches with it, as always with a new technology, but I'm really looking forward to it. Hey, the Bayless Code is here. What's up? How's it going? Jay Beats and Waves. Hey, peeps. Edgar Santa Maria. What's going on? Randy Miller. Average Joe. Rob of the Fossil says, maybe you can help raise my son during a pandemic. I think he finds your voice relaxing at least. Well, that's good to hear. I don't know about the child rearing thing, but I appreciate the offer. Hold on. I'm getting verklempt. Let me take a little drink. Okay. So we have how many people here right now? 74. All right, we have 74 people here. I know we have some lurkers, which is perfectly acceptable, but I am calling on everyone to answer this question. Who here is learning React or has learned React? Put a 1 in the comments now. Who here is learning React or has learned React? Put a 1 in the comments. Let's take a quick poll and see where we are with this. And then I'm going to go, as you guys answer, I'm going to go into my Discord because there was a very interesting comment made the other day. All right, listen to this. So as you developers know, now let me go back here because this is way too distracting. Last week, we talked a lot about PHP. Lots of PHP jobs, lots of PHP opportunities. People like to take a dump on PHP, and it makes me sad. I started a PHP repo, and this, people are like, what does this have to do with React? A lot. I started a PHP learning resources repo. Paradoodly-doo, if you can find that repo, please pop it in the comments, because this is a page where we are sharing PHP learning resources. They're very hard to find. It's a patchwork assortment and I wanted to put them all on one page. This isn't exhaustive, but I have about 10 or 11 right now on there for beginners and intermediate, with more to come. And in fact, tomorrow, we're going to be dropping on my second channel, Tech Course Review, a review of Steph Mischuk's Studio Web. So stay tuned for that one. Have a lot of interesting things to share with that platform. But going back to the topic of React and problem solving, using React as a tool to problem solve rather than an end-all be-all type of thing. Let's go to this comment made in my Discord the other day. Areti says, PHP, I had 2 job interviews today. One for a front-end React job. Dude asked me to code Hello World and PHP on shared screen and one of the technical questions. I was like, I don't know PHP though. And he was like, yeah, I want to see how you are at figuring something out that you don't know. Also, my second job, a front-end Angular position. They asked me how I was with PHP. I think RTC cursed me with a PHP virus. Very possible. Very possible, Areti. But the big thing right here, listen to this. For anyone who thinks I'm full of it, one was for a front-end React job. Dude asked me to code a Hello World in PHP. He was like, yeah, I want to see how you are at figuring something out that you don't know. What is that? What is that, developer? Say it with me now. Problem solving. The interviewer wanted to see this person's problem solving skills, not necessarily how they're working with Angular, how they're working with Vue or React or any such thing. They wanted to see this person's problem solving skills displayed. Now, that's a challenging question, no doubt, for a new person saying, yeah, figure something out you don't know with a language you don't know. It's a challenge, no doubt. It's a challenge, no doubt. But if you have been honing those problem solving skills, you at least know where to start. You at least know where to start, and that's 90% of it. That's 90% of it. The deer in the headlights look is default when we haven't been honing our problem-solving skills. All right, RTC, I'm ready for it. How do I hone my problem-solving skills? Great question. It doesn't necessarily have to be with code, although there is a really great book. Hold on. Yeah, I don't know where it is, but it's called Think Like a Programmer by Anton Sproul, I believe. Now that's a book written in Java, but it might be good for you. Might be worth checking out. Thinking like a programmer, Think Like a Programmer. Anton V. Sproul. And the first chapter is not even anything to do with coding. They ask you this challenge. How would you get a fox and a box and some cat in the hat thing where you're supposed to transport 3 items in 2 trips? Like what? And you can only take one at a time or something like that. It's a really fun challenge, and it might stump you. There's a lot of stumping questions in that book, and it's very helpful. It really helped me think more in terms of solving a problem and being process oriented. Because all of this junk, all of these words, all of these symbols, all of these signs, they're part of a process. The person who coded this class, this to-do app, and okay, let's just say blah, 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 blah. Look at that. Just like that. Look at that. Isn't that beautiful? Isn't that wonderful? That little to-do app required this developer to think in steps and take it in as a process and output it as a process. Like, okay, even if you're coding spaghetti code where there's, you're not using any sort of programming paradigm, you're just throwing it on the screen and telling the computer what to do, it's still a process. No matter what. You could have the crappiest code of all time. It's a process. Now, it's maybe not an optimized process, but it's a process. And so when you hone your problem-solving skills, that is improving your process. That's another thing we get paid for, our problem solving process. That phrase is so valuable, And employers know. So this person, I don't know this dude, where they worked, what their job is. If I had to guess, they're a senior developer. Because this type of question is not something a non-technical recruiter would ask you. Or maybe it would be, but they wouldn't follow up with, I want to see how you are at figuring something out that you don't know. That's programming thinking. And it's something you don't see a lot in human resources, because on a daily basis, as non-programmers, we're not thinking as abstractly as we are when we're in programming mode. Programming is an abstract thing. It's very abstract. Most of it's not tangible. It's intangible. And so it's hard to think of. It's a new way of thinking. And if you approach it as a non-programmer and just go through the motions of let me enroll in a React course, it's going to feel good. You're going to build some projects. But if you're not picking up a process, and if you're not amplifying your own process, you're going to have some problems later on. And it's not to scare anyone or say, watch out, you're never going to make it. Not at all. But just to be aware that the more important thing the title of this video is My Life After React. I'm doing just fine. I taught myself React. I'm here now. I love what I do. I have a career. I have my own business. I'm feeling great. Your life after X technology will go on. Are you prepared for that? That's all I'm asking. And if you're not prepared, that's okay. You have time. You have a lot of time. If you're a new developer getting into React and you're feeling shaky on your problem-solving skills, you have plenty of opportunities. You have plenty of time. You have plenty of time to hone those. And one thing you could consider, now this might be a dangerous suggestion for some, so proceed as needed. Maybe taking a look at how some of these other frameworks do this type of stuff. How do other frameworks like Angular produce, what does the syntax look like for their components? And then maybe seeing, just comparing it line by line, just checking out the differences between the two. That can be a really illustrative process. I had a video, this woman on Twitter. Now, Twitter, I don't use Twitter anymore, I gave it up. It's not worth my mental health. It's not worth my time. But when I was using it, I came across this great post by this woman named Rebecca, I think. She's in Australia, and she had an absolutely killer way of teaching herself JavaScript. Here's how it worked. She would let's use React as an example. Say you wanted to teach yourself React. This is the method she used. She would literally take it line by line. So she'd go to line 1. She'd look at line 1 and she would literally ask, what is class? What is hello message? What is extends? What is React component? Why? And then go on to why. Why is hello message in uppercase? Why do we have this naming, this convention here with the uppercase H and the uppercase M? Why is the R capitalized? Why is there this dot? What does the dot do? And so doing that, you can tear it apart and see exactly, precisely what each of these symbols, words, characters does. That's powerful. That is powerful. And I saw that tweet. I saw her example of how she had used this to her advantage. And I was like, this girl is en fuego. This is awesome. This is a wonderful way. And so what she would do, she'd ask herself these questions. She would actually write it down. And you can use a notebook. You can use a code editor, whatever is handy for you. And just write what is class. And then define it. And if you don't know it, look it up. And if you don't understand what they're saying in the definition, ask someone. Ask a mentor, ask the Discord, ask someone in your meetup, ask the entire meetup. It's just a really powerful way of picking something up. It's going to take a long time. This is not an overnight thing. If you tore apart this snippet, this render function, and this one, if you tore that apart, you might be spending all day. You might be spending 8 hours on this. Because then you start asking yourself more questions like, okay, what is this div? Why is there HTML in JavaScript? Great question. I'm still asking myself this years later after React decided this JSX thing was where it's at. Ridiculous. Why is there a div inside here? All right, I get the closing div. So I understand this is HTML. I understand the what. But why? But why? Going down to React.render. So what is rendering? What is render? Write that down. What is this now? Is this some modified HTML? What is hello message? Well, I answered this. If I answered this one up here, I'll know what this one is. Maybe I could ask myself, are these two the same things? What is the purpose? I'm going back up here to line 1, though. I'm getting ahead of myself. What is the purpose of the curly brace? And if you can start answering all those questions, I think you're on the right track. Now, you could honestly, this could be a launch pad for days and weeks of study because there is so much stuff going on behind the scenes. And the truth is, you don't need to know how electricity works in order to use it. However, if you want to engineer electricity, you do need to know how it works. And the more you know how it works, the more you can manipulate it and the more you can get paid. Cheers. Is Chiquito here yet? Oh. This is Living in Gratitude kombucha. It's a fall edition with apple, turmeric, carrot, and spices, and it's so good. Oh, it's amazing. Let's go into the comments. I've been babbling a lot. Check to see what everyone is doing. How everyone's doing. What's up, Eddie? Eddie's here. Developers, I interviewed Eddie a few weeks ago. He is awesome. Check his YouTube channel out. He says, LOL, so true. We spent years separating JavaScript and HTML. Then React comes along and puts them together again. Eddie, I know. I don't want to kvetch about it, but I just feel like it's ridiculous. It's awful. It's a travesty. Let's go to these comments. Thanks for tuning in, by the way. Andriel, hey, what's up? Good to see you. Andriel says, I know someone who insisted that the you don't know JavaScript was the only way to learn it, and she would get mad if anyone questioned her. It's funny. I literally have the Up and Going book right in front of me. And they are good books. Kyle Simpson is a really great representative for JavaScript because he loves it. He's a true believer. And so he's a great representative for the language. However, the book series is great, but there is more than one way to skin a component. Wait, I'm talking about JavaScript. There's more than one way to skin a JavaScript array. Hey, what's up, Montserrat? What's going on? How's it going? The one is here. The Bayless code says line by line. That's how I learned IS and PHP. Radioactive says that was an awesome line. Is great example, RTC using electricity. Thanks. And it's true. Like, not to say yeah, I'm totally right. No, but just thinking about it, like I came in here, I flipped on a light switch. It's light in here. I didn't have to think about it. I didn't have to think about it at all in order to use it. But if I wanted to like trick out this room and like get really customized without killing myself, I'd have to know how to engineer that electricity. So there is a big difference. And the more intimately you're familiar with it, again, the more things you can do with it, and the more you can get paid, the more opportunities there are. Great comments today, developers. Thanks a lot for joining and tuning in. JavaScript, the weird parts, is the best way to learn. Hey, Randy, how's it going? Go Price Go says, RTC, the more you teach, the more not smart I feel. Go Price Go, number 1. It's good to see you here. I'm glad to see you at the live stream. And Curtis Davis, number 2, how's it going? And number 2, Go Price Go. Concerning your comment, the more you teach, the more not smart I feel. I can empathize with that comment. I used to, so going a little OT, but somewhat related to the topic at hand, when I was learning web development, I got really frustrated. Like, there was just so much stuff. I didn't have a network. I didn't have like a community where I felt like I was part of the community. I was part of like, groups here and there, but nothing where I felt like a valued member. You know what I mean? And so I'd go like jump from platform to platform. I'd like chat here and there. I did go to a few meetups and those were amazing, but this was when I was online and like in the thick of it. And I couldn't go to a Women Who Code meeting at 2 a.m. or like a JavaScript meetup at 3 a.m. And I would go to these different platforms and I would get so frustrated. And this was when I was first starting my YouTube channel as RealToughCandy, and I made this video about Free Code Camp, and I just dug into them so hard. I was very harsh with my review. I blamed my shortcomings and my lack of planning on Free Code Camp, because I just felt, and I would see like these people blaze through some of these code examples like on YouTube and some of these tutorials, and I'm just like, the minute I turn away from a tutorial, I can't even build a simple project. If someone told me, even like 4 or 5 months after starting to learn web development, like, hey, go build a to-do app, like even a simple one, I couldn't do it without documentation, or like I wouldn't even know where to start. But the good part is it does get a lot easier. It does. Everyone in the industry, once you start getting paid for what you do, once there's that validation of someone saying, you know what, I'm going to take a chance on this person, then you start getting into the groove and things get easier. All of these courses, they're great, but they're just scratching the surface. And I know that's probably not an encouraging remark, but it's something to put into perspective, because these courses are all about the tech and the implementation and like the very specific details about how a technology works. This course, hooks, React, router, Redux, a laundry list of things you can use to make your application more efficient. I would wager that most people who are taking the courses, they don't even know why they're learning React. And so it's important to just start with the basic questions, I think. And that's one way of making it easier and really putting things into perspective, because otherwise it's just course after course, tutorial after tutorial, and things keep sounding confusing. No matter, okay, you took 3 React courses and it's still confusing. Like, what am I doing wrong? If you take a step back and really just focus more on the problem-solving process and realize, just going back to that one example of that Rebecca lady who took it line by line. You don't need a 40, 50, 60-hour course to dive in. Let's take a simple example. Like, this is probably, React is probably, that's just the thing too. React is not a good, it's not really newbie friendly. So, you know what? Let me go, let me search like JavaScript snippet. Then we can more easily, let's see. Okay, interesting. This probably isn't, let me go to the W3 schools, because then we can more focus on something that's more rudimentary. Let's go to like conditional logic or something. I actually don't care what it is. Variables, maybe. So this is good. They updated for let and const. Last time I checked this part, they didn't. All right, so this is a really good example. So let's go back here for a moment. We're looking at this example. They're showing you about variables. They're teaching you variables. var price 1 is 5, var price 2 is 6, var total equals price 1 plus price 2. Now, many of us, if not most of us, can deduce or compute the total here. If you can't, that's all right, because we're going to take it line by line. So if you don't know what var is, use that technique. What is var? What is var? Then, okay, what is price 1? And if you recognize this equal sign from grade school math, you know, this equals means is. So var price 1 is 5. Okay, var price 1 is 5. What is var? We define it up here. Price 2, what is price 2? Price 2 is 6. So basically they're saying down here, okay, so what is total? Total is price 1 in addition to price 2. And so if you just take it again line by line, even the most rudimentary of things have a new freshness to them. And so 5 plus 6, your total is 11. Start simple. If the line method for learning something is tough, like again, React is kind of a bad example because it is not, if you're a newbie, this all is disgusting. But if you're new, you can use something like this and then just go line by line and word by word, character by character, and then it starts making more sense. That's another thing I talked about in one of my earlier videos, solving JavaScript problems. Paradoodly-doo, if you're still on this live stream, can you plug that video? This was a video I did about probably like 2 years ago now. How to solve JavaScript problems. That's actually a course coming up on RealToughCandy.io in 2021. The demand has never been higher. People are like, yeah, I don't know how to, I just don't get it. So we're going to go through how to solve JavaScript problems, or solve problems using JavaScript rather. And so one trick that really does help me, whether it's rudimentary stuff or advanced stuff, is transforming these problems into word problems. And if it's a word problem, transforming it into a numerical problem, because that's something that really helped me in high school algebra, ninth grade algebra. I am not a math whiz. Yeah, I never took like calculus or trig or anything like that. Algebra and geometry, that's about as good as I get. But one thing, when I was in algebra, I remember the word problems, and so certain words have mathematical equivalents. And certain equivalents, those symbols have their equivalents in the English language. So, for example, like we said in this first line, this equal sign in English is. Var price 1 is 5. And that's something that really helped me. I'm not trying to like overcomplicate it or like beat it to death, but that's something that really freaking helps me when I'm stuck on a problem, is like, okay, how can I translate all of these numbers and all these symbols to English? Or if it's a word, if someone like came up to me and said, here's how my problem solving works. This is my process. Someone came up to me and said, RTC, I need you to build me a shopping cart from scratch. Shopping carts from scratch are very tough. And 2 years ago, I have no idea where to start. But now, because I have that problem-solving process, I do know where to start. I start by asking specific questions. What do you want this cart to do? What do you want this cart to look like? When do you need this by? Because that's also going to influence how I develop this thing. If you need this cart by next year, it's going to be a really nice cart because I'll have a whole year. If you need the cart by next week, it's going to look horrible. But you probably will have a working product. And so asking questions and getting down to really specific questions and having those project requirements is a great idea. And if you're not doing that with your projects, I know it's hard taking courses because you don't have someone to throw ideas off of, but you could go to our Discord, you could go to meetups, I think finding a mentor or finding a group is really, really, really important, because otherwise things like this don't nearly as have much efficacy. They're not effective when you're just doing it alone, by yourself, in a basement, or even upstairs in a living room. Eating pizza rolls or not, doesn't matter. Cheese curls. I myself have lover of the curl. Not gonna lie. But having someone else there to throw these ideas off of and act, just kind of like role playing it out where that person can act like a business owner or act like the senior developer and get your brain trained that way. This is all just training. And going back to Go Prices, Go comments about, the more I talk about this and other people too, I'm sure, the more complicated things sound and seem, and they are. And, the less you feel like but it is a rabbit hole. And ultimately, the most important thing is solving problems. And this is something, again, not to plug my own stuff here, not to plug this book, Portfolio Surgery. I do emphasize that in the book and in the course, Portfolio Surgery, that you don't have to solve world hunger. You can. That's a pretty big problem. You'd be very rich, not just financially, but you would lead a very rich life if you could solve the problem of world hunger. But most of us, and that's a Herculean task. And so it doesn't have to be that big. It can just be a really, really, really small problem. Even if it shaves off a few milliseconds of a process, that's still an improvement and that's still solving a problem. So like, for example, if you build a to-do list. So let's say you built out this to-do list. This is a cute little application, right? Some people put these in their portfolio. Generally not a good idea. Why? Because the problem has been solved literally a million times over. But once you start putting your twist on it, what if I had a to-do list that I didn't have to write down the actual to-dos? What if it was an application that actually knew what I had to do? Oh, that would solve some problems. How would it know what I needed to do? And so you go on these mental exercises and you're like, okay. Now, some of these things are going to be, I remember when I would go on these mind experiments, and what I wanted to do was beyond my current capabilities. And so unfortunately I had to shelve a lot of my ideas because they were really big. And go for those big ideas. May as well try them. But also too, keeping in mind that your time is at a premium, especially if you're looking for a job. But don't be afraid to explore things, I guess is what I'm saying. But looking at these things and thinking about how would you add your own little twist to this and solve a problem? Because this code, again, right here, it's been written a million times. To-do apps, literally written, built a million times, solving no problem. How can you tweak this to solve a problem? And just getting your mind exercising in that way and building up the skills that you need to solve problems. Let's go to the comments here. Some great comments today, everyone. Danielle Bloom is here. What's up, Danielle? Whoop, whoop. Eddie says, when I create a video tutorial that is 10 minutes, I actually record 1 hour, then edit out all the mistakes. No, I know. Same. And that's, it's a problem. That's a problem. Speaking of problems, it's a problem I have too, because I don't do a lot of tutorials on this channel here and there. I mean, I haven't done one in quite some time. But for my platform, RealToughCandy.io, I had, a 1 hour course, a 2 hour course has 6-7 hours of video. And on one hand, some people are like, please include the mistakes. I want to see that you're human. And I appreciate that. I can totally appreciate that. But on the other hand, it's like, okay, number one, you're making yourself way too vulnerable. And people are going to be like, oh, wow, you don't know how to code. And number two, not everyone wants to see the mistakes. So that's a really interesting comment, Eddie, because I've always kind of had an internal battle with that one. How many mistakes do I want to show people that I'm making? Or how much time do I want to keep on the video where I'm looking at the documentation or where I'm phoning a friend, DMing people on Discord? So yeah, and I still have I have a ton of questions. A lot of the stuff that I do, I just forget. If you don't use it, you lose it. Because there is so much to remember. This industry is not about memorization. So if you're spending your nights trying to memorize CSS properties or something, you're wasting your time. You need to be focusing less on memorization and more honing your process, because memorization is going to slow you down and it does not develop your process, i.e. problem-solving process. Let's go back to the comments. Eddie says, right dinner night all. Thanks, RTC. Thanks, Eddie, for joining in. Appreciate it. Go check out Eddie's channel, everyone. He has a great channel. He does a lot of open source work, a lot of community work. So check it out. I'm going to go through these comments and see what everyone is up to. Talk amongst yourselves. You know, I did about an hour ago, I asked you all to hit 1 if you've studied React. Look at all these. Okay, so we're going back. For those of you just joining us, about 45 minutes ago, I asked people in the chat to hit a 1 if they're studying React or have learned React. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. We have a lot of 1s, okay? We have a lot of 1s. Lots of people. Donovan, hit the 1. Awesome. Lots of people hit that 1. Even people who are not working with it in enterprise. Or even not everyone. I have to be careful with my words here, because not everyone working in development is in an enterprise position, of course. When I say enterprise, I usually mean just employed, so I need to be more specific with that. But a lot of people who are employed right now, they've learned this, they've learned React, never used it at work. Never used it at work. Now, if you are studying this stack, which is very popular, lots of places just aren't using it. And that's okay. That's all right. Some places are. Lots of places are updating and upgrading their jQuery, their knockouts. But migrating to something new in the real world takes a lot of decision making, a lot of planning. It costs a lot of money, and it takes a while to do. So what these courses are teaching you is how to build projects from the ground up. When you get into the real world of development, the projects have already been built most of the time, unless you're starting at ground zero startup land, which most of us aren't. There are more established companies out there than startups. Even in software development, if you can believe it. Whether you're in the healthcare industry, whatever. I don't need to go through the whole, everything runs on software. There's software in every industry. So most of these companies are already in existence. And to have something like a knockout front end and to say, we're going to migrate to React, that takes a lot of planning. That takes months and sometimes a year or more. Especially with people going in and out, and the culture of modern employment, where developers are staying, a year and then moving on to their next job. The continuity is oftentimes lacking, and people's different coding styles, and it's not clean. Now, here's an interesting comparison. Believe it or not, I went to an automotive technology school to learn how to work on cars. Can you believe it? Our first course, so it was like an 8-module course. This was an in-person, for-profit school. Our first course was Engines 101. And so you do a few hours of lecture and then go into the lab. The labs were awesome because you could actually wrench on cars and wrench on the motors and stuff. And so you would actually, one of our first labs was tearing down a motor. And so, you'd measure certain things. You had a buddy there from class to make sure, the motor wasn't going to fall on your face because that would hurt, and all these other things, and writing down these measurements, taking the proper tools out and putting them back, etc. Tearing down that motor was so easy. I couldn't believe it. Everything just kind of, screwed right out, or the bolt just you could almost hand twist it right off. And it was the easiest thing. And I called my mom that night. I said, Mom, you won't believe it. I tore down a freaking engine. She's like, yeah, wait till you do it in the middle of winter when the salt's on the road and a 1987 Grand Prix pulls in and you have to wrench on that motor. And I'm just like, Mom, why you gotta ruin my dream? I'm just kidding. She was totally right. In a controlled environment, these things are easy. In a controlled environment, these things are easy peasy. You can hand twist that bolt right off React router in these courses. You can hand twist that bolt right in React.js.org's to do application. Look at that. Look at how easy that is. But when you get into the real world, these things are messy. They're dusty, they're rusty, they're crusty, and they're musty. And it takes a lot more work. The reason I'm expressing this and get it? Ha! The reason I'm sharing this is to help prepare your mind for when you're employed. Because this is heaven right now. Some people call it tutorial hell, tutorial purgatory. This to me is heavenly. They edit out all the mistakes. We edit out all our mistakes. These run brilliantly. Look at this. Look at that. Brilliant. Look at how seamless that is. When you get into the real world, it's not that seamless. It's not that seamless. And so, again, problem-solving skills. Because if you know the implementation from scratch and that's all you ever do at work, you're going to be fine. If all you ever do at work is build Stephen Grider projects, you'll be just fine. But you're not going to build Stephen Grider projects at work. You're going to be working on some stuff that's real scary, real spooktacular. Had 20 developers working on it. One of them was fired for snooping in someone else's email and attempted to sabotage the company. Another one didn't care. Another one didn't practice good programming principles. Lots of spaghetti code. We forget that there are other people involved in this process and people are really messy. These snippets are snapshots of perfection. So, number one, enjoy it. This is, as a student, it's a really fun time. It's a really fun time. You know, most of the live stream has been me talking as a precautionary measure because I want to see you succeed. But also, too, as a student, whether you're self-taught in college doing this, doing React, learning React or whatever offline, because college isn't going to teach you React. The college system is too slow to adapt to these changing things. Wherever you are, boot camp, wherever, have some fun with it. Gotta have some fun with it because this is a fun career. This can be a really fun career. It's really rewarding. It can be really fun. It's easy to burn out, but it can be really fun. It's really tempting to spend 16 hours a day on a computer, and burnout can be a result of that. So, proceed with caution, but have some fun. This stuff is fun. React, it's fun. jQuery, where are you? jQuery, where'd you go? Don't do this to me. Oh, looks like I got rid of it. Whatever, here it is. jQuery is fun. Knockout is fun. All this stuff. And even if you're a backend developer, backend stuff is fun too. I love databases. As I say in many of these videos, I secretly should have been a DBA, a database administrator, because I'm really good at it. And sometimes the front end stuff just seems too crowded. I feel a little too claustrophobic. And in the back, when I'm working in back end, I'm just there's room to stretch. But honestly, at the end of the day, I enjoy it all. I do really enjoy it all. But as far as ninja powers, database. We're going to go to these comments and then I'm going to wrap it up. Developers, thanks for tuning in today. If you haven't tuned in before, I want to welcome you to my channel. I'm RTC. I have a book dropping November 16th, Portfolio Surgery. We're going to make this a #1 new release. I know we are. It's going to be my 5th #1. I'm so excited. Thank you so much for helping me make that possible. And Portfolio Surgery, what it does, it's going to help you transform your portfolio. This is information. I use the book based on information I got doing dozens, over 100 portfolio reviews, both on this channel and during one-on-one consultations. If you're having trouble getting creative with your portfolio, you don't want to miss this book. It's on Amazon, paradoodly-doo. Pop that link. It's also a course on RealToughCandy.io. Let's go to these comments. GPG says, I'm with you. SQL is easier to learn for me too. I freaking love SQL, man. When I saw that Andre Negoy's bootcamp course was teaching PostgreSQL rather than Mongo, I was just like, okay, 5 stars, you win. Because that's a hype-driven development is really a thing. And unfortunately, some of this like boring stuff like SQL gets pushed to the back when in reality, it's used quite a bit. It's very important. Zaya Main says, the DBA at my work has the easiest job. He has scripts for all his queries and spends most of his day watching sports. Hey, sign me up. As long as the work gets done. I mean, there are worse things. I'm not endorsing watching sports when you're supposed to be working. But hey, if you get the work done. Kevin says, less memorization, more understanding concepts and how software is built. Absolutely. Ali, how's it going? Troy Mitchell says, what languages and DBs do you use most of the time on a day-to-day basis? LampStack. #1, because a lot of the stuff I do is WordPress based. And #2, some of the stuff I work on, a lot of the stuff I work on is more what people would call legacy, as in like 3 years plus old. I mean, it's not really legacy. I'm being facetious. But LampStack stuff. I'll do, as far as like getting paid, LampStack, I would say almost exclusively. I've tried and I've mentioned this on a previous video, one of my interviews, trying to sell the idea of like static site generators, trying to sell the idea of some new technologies. But at the end of the day, it's a consumer driven thing. Freelancing, like we live in a consumer driven society. And, some people may call and be like, but not me, but this like theoretically, because this does happen with other technologies. They're like, yeah, I've been hearing this thing about React. I want a React app. Like, again, that hasn't happened to me personally, but it has with other technologies. People in business will have a friend who has a Shopify site or a WooCommerce site based on WordPress or OpenCart or something. This technology could be 10 years old, could be 3 months old, but their buddy has it. Their buddy's in business too, and so that's what they want. Or alternatively, they'll point to a site and say, I want this. And more often than not, it's not the MERN stack. It's a LAMP project or LampStack project. When I was in enterprise, that was a whole different story, though. There lots of proprietary stuff, a ton of different frameworks. I can't even list them all. I do talk about it in my book, Real Tough Software, though. I do chronicle my time spent in enterprise and what I did to land that job. Let's see. Digital Shaolin, React is fun. I don't know about jQuery. Oh, come on. Come on, Digital. jQuery is super fun. The Bayless Code says, I love React, but I don't use it at work. Mostly basic JavaScript and PHP. I was going to use React for a new project, but I may use Vue since it interfaces with Laravel and is more beginner friendly. Yeah, awesome. Laravel, that is one thing, that is one technology I want to get more into, and I don't want to say master it, but I think it is one great thing. It is like one of the best things that's happened to PHP over the past couple years, besides PHP 7, which PHP 8 is coming out soon, developers. I think November something. If not November, then December. Ahmed from Egypt, hello! Steve H says, I watched a live stream where the guy did some simple Code Wars problems. Seeing him work through the problems and errors was gold. Yeah, that's another thing too. A lot of people do live coding sessions, not just on YouTube, but Twitch. Now, mind you, they're usually not explaining what they're doing. You may find some people out there who do, but there is so much concentration required when you're doing like Leak Code or Code Wars or whatever. There's other sites, coding challenges where you're just like, yeah, I can't talk right now. And just watching their process. I'm glad you brought that up, because that could be another avenue for developing your own problem-solving process and seeing how other people do it. Seeing how other people screw up. Because the truth be told, like, debugging is what we're doing. Looking over code and figuring out why this isn't running is what we're doing. You write once. It was Sandy Metz who said the real cost of code isn't writing it, but reading it. Because you code it once, but then like it's read over thousands of times. I thought that was an interesting perspective. Developers, it's 5:10. Thank you so much for tuning in today. My life after React.js, let me tell you, my life is going just fine. Wherever you end up in the workforce or even after the workforce, if you learn React and you know that it's a means to an end rather than an end in itself, you'll be just fine. The important thing is to not treat it like it's the end all be all, but rather a means to solving a problem. If you can work with that, I think your development life is going to be a whole lot easier. As always, I want to give a shout out to my channel sponsors. They have hit the join button. They have green text on their name. They have a little piece of candy. We got Donovan, Randy Miller, William Claybrook, Candace, and other people signing up. So thank you so much for that. My patrons, like Ian, the Bayless Code, and S. Cochran, our newest member, thank you so much. Portfolio Surgery developers, November 16th on Amazon. To transform your projects. Everything I learned from doing portfolio reviews is in that book. It's my best book yet. Thank you so much for your support. If you want to continue the conversation, we also, hey, one more thing. This is a Minnesota goodbye, by the way. We have a Colt Steel study group on the Discord. It's popping off. It is absolutely en fuego. I love checking in and seeing what the people there are doing. There's going to be a voice chat meetup, I think this Sunday. But if you're going through the Colt Steel course and you want support and you want some pure support, go to the RealToughCandy Discord now. Introduce yourself. There is a welcoming party eagerly awaiting you. Shadaz and Tug and all those other folks, Sarah, working on the course, doing some great stuff, and they are making some maneuvers with that course, and it's just wonderful. So just want to throw that out there. I'll be back tomorrow on my second channel doing a review of Steph Mistruck's PHP, etc. Package course the platform is called StudioWeb. He teaches PHP, Python also, and JavaScript. It's wild. I'll be doing that tomorrow. That debuts tomorrow sometime, probably late afternoon, early evening CST. And then we'll be back early next week on this channel for some more web development goodness. Developers, I am wishing you a happy Halloween. Thank you for tuning in. I am going to go drink a kombucha and enjoy this Friday night, and I hope you are too. So thanks for tuning in as always. Hope you're having a great night, and I'll see you in the next video.